Somebody wants to sue you because you had a house and they told you there was mold and you didn't do anything about it, they say, and now they're going to sue you.
As if there were better states.
Better states.
Like, there's states that are like a little better to do business in versus others?
Yeah, for sure. And so there's levels of states. So we've got, like you're in California, which is on technically the not good state to be incorporating in, basically because there's a lot of horrific labor laws. The taxes are extremely high. There's an $800 minimum tax that every company has to pay in California, whether you make money or not. Even if it's a holding company and doesn't make money, you still got to pay the $800. What else about that? You can't do series LLCs. So some states are better than others. And there's, like I said, levels. So we've got first taxes. Does your state charge tax? California does. But a lot of people make the mistake around states like where I live, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, and now New Hampshire. But they are like, oh, well, citizens don't pay tax on their income there. So that's good. Well, not so fast, because here in Tennessee, it's $300 per year for every company you set up. And they don't call it a tax, but it's another $150 of whatever Nashville wants to charge you on top of it. So, and you're like, well, that's not that big of a deal. Well, if you had 10 houses here in Tennessee, that's like $1,500 of tax that you shouldn't have had to manage. So there's only really 2 tax states that are free of tax for companies. And that's Nevada, Wyoming. And there are some weird taxes, like in Nevada, if you get over $10 million in receipts, then yes, there's a tax. And there's a few other little weird things that don't really matter for the medium to small business owners, but generally we call them tax-free states. Then you have reporting, like what we've been talking about. You've got only really 3 states in the union. I mean, South Dakota has some good non-reporting, but it's really Wyoming, Nevada, again, and sort of a dark horse in the form of Georgia. And then, so Georgia's a tax state, but it has non-reporting, and that's pretty cool. Then there's 6 states that are what we call non-charging states. And a non-charging state means that if you have a partnership, not a corporation, if you have a partnership and you lose a lawsuit, so, somebody wants to sue you because you had a house and they told you there was mold and you didn't do anything about it, they say, and now they're going to sue you in a non-charging state. Even if they win against you in court, then all they can do is they can put a lien against your company and they can try to take the earnings that you make. But unlike in the rest of the states in the union, they cannot seize, the judge cannot force you to give up shares of the company, give up control of the company, and they cannot liquidate anything. So there are 6 states are, really, really powerful in the non-charging category. And again, only for partnerships and single member LLCs. Your S Corp, your C Corp, no, it doesn't work there. You're exposed because they're actual legitimate shares. You remember which 6 states they are?
I remember Georgia's the sleeper.
Well, yeah, Georgia is a charging state, but it's a state that doesn't report, which is why it's not really a great state per se, but it does have one of those rare things where it doesn't report. So the first one is always my state. My state is one of them good ones. So Tennessee and Florida, and then of course the big 2, Nevada, Wyoming. And then you've got Delaware, which most people think about, and it's a great place to do C corporations because a lot of venture capitalists, VC folks want to see corporations in Delaware. There's a lot of good tax benefits for banks and things. But the one nobody remembers is our newest tax-free state in the union, which is New Hampshire. You're like, New Hampshire? Yeah, and don't make the mistake of thinking New Jersey, because New Jersey is one like California, one of the worst states where LLCs are almost $1,000 a year. And that's not a tax thing. That's just how much it costs. So that's pretty gross.
Well, that'll be easy to remember. No Jersey Shore. That's easy enough.
No Jersey. Yes. No Trenton, no Jersey. New Hampshire. New Hampshire, please. Now, a lot of people think Texas Texas, T states are generally pretty good states, Tennessee, Texas, but Texas, Texas people are amazing. Like
Yes.
you are from Texas. Sterling's from Texas, if you didn't know that. And we were actually both in Dallas at the same time a few days ago.
Just a few days
Different parts of it. I was in the airport, not being able to sleep because it was a red-eye flight. But Texas is a great state because it's non-tax for citizens. But that's about it. Texas is, I would call it, when we say it's a red state, I don't mean politically. I mean, it's like you really don't want to be incorporating because the Secretary of State historically is so bad. It takes weeks to get things done and forms uploaded, and forms processed rather, not uploaded. And there's no real benefit to being in Texas over some of those other states that we mentioned.
No, and it'll be interesting to see just what happens to Texas politics, because all of Southern California moved there during our great pause in our nation, and everybody got tired of having small houses. And if we were going to be home, they wanted some space, and so Austin has blown up. It's like 3 times the size it was before. So it'll be really interesting to see how that tips the political scales and conversations there. I'm happy for some things to be particularly a little bit more modernized in Texas, and I still do love our more traditional values there. Both things, both equally good.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, people are still going to Texas. When I first moved to Tennessee in 2020 during COVID, I was meeting more Californians than I was meeting Tennesseans, and I know it was that way in Texas. What do you think is going to happen? I think
the Texans will win them over. That's what I really do think. I think that they'll discover why it is that, sort of our great pioneering spirit that we have in Tennessee and Texas, what that's really about. Like, what's actually really important about that is that you have the freedom of your own family and your own choices and your own decisions. And it's not so much left up to a political discussion that's of the general public. It's more about your own house. I think it makes a big difference that you have your own land there and your own space. Whereas here in California, we're all so stacked up on top of each other. You better get along real well with that neighbor and have somewhat of the same rules and regulations as that neighbor, because, there's not a lot of room for big fences. Whereas in Texas, we have big fences, and that makes good neighbors. So I don't know. I think that the traditional values actually will win them over eventually. It may take a minute because they're just used to more socialized conversation. And I think some of the things that are more humanitarian-based things will get infiltrated, right? Like the banned book problems that we have in Texas and Tennessee. That's a huge issue, right? That, knowledge should be a free conversation. And I think they will win them over in that sort of way of like, we don't necessarily need so much regulation around this. Maybe just read the book yourself first and see if it's a great book for your kid. And if not, then don't give it to them. I don't know. I think they're going to sway in both directions, actually. So, and I'm happy for them, really. So, I definitely have been surprised that a lot of our Californians are now firearms aficionados, which they were not prior, and so I think that'll also. The other thing about living out in the country is you can not have that in the city because you have more police force that has a bigger response time. You live out in the country and you got to manage some things on your own, and so nobody's coming to save you from the possums outside. So,
or the bobcats or the cougars or the wolves. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. When I lived, my first house in Tennessee was a beautiful 4,500 square foot house on 5 acres, which to me, living in LA for 50 years, I was like, this is insane. Look at all this space. And you get out there at night when there's no lights and no nothing, and it is black out there. And, I had night vision, and I still do it. I'd go out and be like, oh my gosh, look at all these animals out here at night. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. I remember when you first moved there, you sent me pictures of fireflies, and I was like, look at you. Like, yeah, whole other life going on outside at night in Texas and Tennessee.
A whole life. It's like, look, there's 4 seasons. Look at this. It's incredible.